The debate that followed the revelation lasted through the night and into the next day. Species that had been allies for centuries found themselves on opposite sides of fundamental questions about the nature of civilization itself. The chamber's energy levels fluctuated wildly as emotions ran high, and ancient assumptions crumbled under scrutiny. Kim watched it all with growing hope. The anger and fear were still there, but now they were mixed with something he had not expected to see: curiosity. For the first time in millennia, these advanced civilizations were asking themselves whether they could be better than they were. Finally, as the debate began to tire itself out, High Commander Vextar rose from his seat. The massive Valorian's presence commanded immediate attention, and the chamber gradually fell silent. "These humans speak uncomfortable truths," he said, his rumbling voice carrying across the vast space. "We have grown comfortable. Our last real military innovation was 3 centuries ago. Our last genuine tactical breakthrough was even longer." He paused, his red eyes scanning the chamber. "I have spent my entire life believing that we had perfected warfare. But perfection, as these humans point out, is the end of growth." The admission sent shockwaves through the Valorian delegation. For a species built on military pride, having their greatest commander acknowledge stagnation was almost unthinkable. "Perhaps," Vextar continued slowly, as if the words were difficult to speak, "perhaps we have something to learn from beings who have never stopped fighting to improve." The harmonious tones of the Nethys collective filled the chamber as they prepared to respond. But for the first time in recorded history, their voices were not in perfect unison. Some members sang in harmony while others created discordant notes reflecting internal disagreement. "The collective experiences division," they finally managed to say together. "Individual chaos creating collective order challenges fundamental assumptions about intelligence and cooperation." One section of the collective spoke separately from the others, their insect-like heads turning toward the human delegation. "Some nodes request permission to study human group dynamics, perhaps. Perhaps there are advantages to individual consciousness that the collective has not considered." Dr. Park stepped forward, addressing the fragmented collective directly. "Individual and collective intelligence each have strengths. Humans have always known this. We form groups when cooperation is needed, but maintain individual thinking to generate new ideas. Perhaps the real advantage is knowing when to use which approach." The collective's harmonies shifted as they processed this concept. Integration of chaos and order. This requires further study. Trade Minister Calvin of the Corvin Federation stood next, his forearms gesturing in patterns that showed deep contemplation. His robes had shifted to thoughtful blues and greens. "If human commercial practices can revitalize trade routes that have become stagnant," he began hesitantly, "the Federation has always valued stability. But perhaps we have confused stability with stagnation." He looked directly at Kim. "Your negotiation methods seem harsh to us because they assume competition and scarcity. But perhaps competition drives innovation in ways that cooperation alone cannot achieve." His robes brightened to excited yellows and oranges. "The Federation proposes joint economic ventures. If controlled competition can foster growth while maintaining stability, we must explore this possibility." The energy being known as Luminar pulsed with new frequencies as it addressed the assembly. The ethereal's light had shifted from worried orange to curious purple. Cultural cross-pollination as evolution rather than contamination. Luminar's thoughts echoed in every mind present. "The conclave has been insular. We achieved transcendence early in our development and have remained unchanged for millennia." The ethereal's form brightened with possibility. "Perhaps diversity strengthens rather than weakens the cosmic order. Perhaps our young are drawn to human ideas not because they are infected, but because they hunger for growth. We no longer provide." Kim felt a surge of hope as he watched the most advanced species in the galaxy grapple with concepts that challenged their most basic assumptions about civilization and progress. The Obsidian Hierarchy's representative activated with its characteristic mechanical sounds. Central Processing Unit Designation. 77 Alpha announces fundamental recalibration of analysis parameters. The machine being's optical sensors focused on the human delegation with what almost seemed like respect. Previous calculations assumed human dominance through conquest. Recalibrating with new parameters. Human influence as catalyst for galactic evolution. Complex mathematical models filled the air above the platform, showing new projections based on cooperative rather than competitive human expansion. New outcome probabilities show increased innovation and advancement across all species, enhanced problem-solving capabilities, improved adaptation to unforeseen challenges. This result is optimal. The machine paused processing. The hierarchy requests technological exchange agreements. Machine intelligence operates through logical optimization. Chaotic human thinking processes may provide solutions to problems we cannot currently solve. Chancellor Vextor called for order, as excited discussions erupted throughout the chamber. It appears that perspectives are shifting, he announced. The human delegation will now present their formal proposal. Kim stepped forward, feeling the weight of history but also its possibility. This was the moment that would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future direction of galactic civilization. Honored delegates, he began. The Human Coalition proposes the Galactic Growth Compact, a framework for cooperative, competition, and mutual advancement. Dr. Park activated new displays showing detailed proposals for various exchange programs and joint ventures. We propose military exchange programs between humans and Valorians, Kim continued. Our forces can learn discipline and advanced technology while sharing adaptive tactics and unconventional strategies. High Commander Vextar nodded slowly. Such exchanges could benefit both our peoples. Cultural exchange with the ethereal conclave and other species, Kim went on. Sharing not just entertainment and art, but fundamental approaches to philosophy and existence. Economic partnerships with the Corvan Federation and other trading powers, combining stability with innovation, cooperation with competition, scientific collaboration with the Obsidian, hierarchy and Nethys Collective, merging logical, optimization with chaotic creativity. Captain Lee stepped forward with the formal compact document. The framework includes regular summit meetings to address conflicts before they escalate, joint exploration and colonization efforts, and shared research projects that benefit all participants. Kim concluded, "We do not seek to replace your civilizations, we seek to challenge them, to push them to grow beyond their current limitations while learning from their accumulated wisdom." The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the full scope of the proposal. This was not conquest or domination, but something unprecedented in galactic history, a voluntary agreement to embrace change and growth. Chancellor Vextor called for the formal vote. One by one, the major powers of the galaxy cast their decisions. The Valorian Empire voted yes, seeking to reclaim their edge through challenge. The Nethys Collective voted yes, curious about the possibilities of individual-collective integration. The Corvan Federation voted yes, seeing opportunities for economic revitalization. The Ethereal Conclave voted yes, drawn by the prospect of renewed growth. The Obsidian Hierarchy voted yes, calculating optimal outcomes through diversity. Several minor species and fringe factions voted no, but the major powers' agreement was sufficient to establish the compact. As the formal agreements were signed using each species' traditional methods, an unprecedented quiet fell over the Galactic Assembly. For the first time in recorded history, a major galactic crisis had been resolved not through conquest, isolation, or destruction, but through mutual understanding and accepted challenge. Years later, historians would mark this day as the beginning of the Second Galactic Renaissance. Innovation rates soared across all member species. Military conflicts became rare, as competitive energy was channeled into exploration and development. Trade flourished under the new paradigm of beneficial competition. New colonies were established jointly by multiple species, combining different approaches to create settlements more successful than any single species' efforts. Research projects that had stagnated for centuries suddenly achieved breakthroughs through the combination of different thinking methods. Humanity took its place not as galactic rulers, but as galactic catalysts, the species that reminded the galaxy how to grow. The most powerful weapon they brought to the Peace Summit had not been advanced technology or superior strategy, but something far more dangerous to stagnant civilizations. The example of a species that never stopped fighting to become better than it was. In the end, humanity had spoken at the Peace Summit, and their words had taught the galaxy to find its voice again. The silence that followed was not the silence of defeat, but the silence of possibility, The quiet moment before a new age began. Admiral Cho Yuna's final transmission from the human fleet captured the moment perfectly. Mission accomplished. We came to defend humanities. The debate that followed Kim's explanation raged for hours. Alien voices rose and fell in heated argument, while translators worked overtime to keep up with the rapid exchange of ideas. Some species called for immediate military action against humanity. Others demanded isolation, but a growing number seemed uncertain about their previous conclusions. Kim stood quietly on the platform, letting the discussion continue around him. Dr. Park monitored the energy readings from various species, noting shifts in emotional states while Captain Lee maintained his protective stance nearby. The human delegation waited, knowing that the real revelation was yet to come. Finally, Chancellor Vextor called for order. "The humans have presented their defense," he rumbled. "Yet questions remain. If everything you say is true, if your advantages come from necessity rather than superiority, then why do we feel so threatened by your presence?" Kim exchanged a look with Dr. Park, who nodded slightly. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the chance to address the real issue underlying all the alien fears. "Chancellor," Kim said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "you feel threatened because we represent something your civilizations have not encountered in millennia, the possibility of change." He gestured to the assembled aliens. "For 2,000 years, your species have been the undisputed masters of this galaxy. You have grown powerful, advanced, secure in your dominance, but you have also grown comfortable." The word hit the chamber like a physical blow. Comfortable was not a concept that proud warrior species like the Valorians wanted to hear applied to themselves. Dr. Park activated new displays showing galactic innovation rates over the past several centuries. "Look at your technological advancement curves," she said. "When was the last time any of your species made a truly revolutionary breakthrough? When did you last face a challenge that required fundamental changes to your thinking?" The data was undeniable. Innovation rates across all major galactic civilizations had been declining steadily for centuries. What advances had been made were mostly refinements of existing technologies rather than genuine breakthroughs. The Valorian Empire has not developed new military tactics in over 300 years. Kim continued, his words precise and cutting. "Your last major innovation was improving the efficiency of existing weapon systems. When did you last face an enemy that forced you to completely rethink warfare?" High Commander Vexitar's stone-like features darkened. "We perfected our methods through conquest." "Why change what works?" "Because," Kim replied, "perfection is the enemy of growth. When you believe you have found the ultimate solution, you stop looking for better ones." Dr. Park turned to the Nethys Collective. "Your collective consciousness has achieved perfect harmony and coordination. But when did you last encounter a problem that your existing groupthink could not solve? When did you last need to develop new ways of processing information?" The harmonious voices of the collective grew discordant for a moment before responding in unison. "The collective achieves optimal solutions. Chaos serves no purpose." "Optimal solutions to known problems," Dr. Park corrected. "But what happens when you face something completely new? Something your collective experience has never encountered before?" She displayed brain activity scans from both humans and collective members when faced with novel challenges. The human brains lit up with chaotic but rapid activity, while the collective members showed organized but slower processing patterns. "Your method works beautifully for familiar challenges, but humans evolved to handle unfamiliar ones." Kim addressed the Corvin Trade Federation next. "Minister Colvin, your commercial networks have been stable for millennia, but stability can become stagnation. When did you last develop new trading methods? When did you last expand into truly untapped markets?" The four-armed aliens' robes shifted to confused browns and grays. "Our methods are proven. They create prosperity for all participants." "For existing participants," Kim agreed, "but they also exclude possibilities you never considered. Human commercial practices seem aggressive to you because they assume scarcity and competition. Your practices assume abundance and cooperation. Both can work, but in different situations." Captain Lee stepped forward, his military bearing evident as he addressed the assembly. "Every human advantage you have identified was forged in the crucible of constant challenge. We did not choose to be adaptable, we had to be or die. We did not choose to be unpredictable. Our survival depended on staying one step ahead of predators, natural disasters, and each other. He activated displays showing human military history, but now focusing on the constant evolution of tactics and strategies. Look at our warfare development. Every few decades, human military doctrine underwent major changes because static methods meant defeat. We learned that the moment you stop adapting, you start dying. The chamber murmured as delegates absorbed this perspective. Many had never considered that constant change might be a strength rather than a weakness. Admiral Cho Yuna's voice crackled through the quantum communicator from the human fleet positioned beyond the system. For 2,000 years, your species have been apex predators in this galaxy. You have had no equals, no real competitors, no existential threats. Do you know what happens to apex predators when they face no challenges? Images appeared of Earth's prehistoric creatures, massive dinosaurs that dominated their environment until changing conditions wiped them out. Saber-toothed cats that ruled until smaller, more adaptable predators displaced them. They grow powerful, but they also grow specialized, perfectly adapted to current conditions but unable to change when those conditions shift. Kim took control again, his voice growing more intense. Humans are not apex predators. We are survivors. We are the species that lived through ice ages, volcanic winters, plagues, and countless near extinctions. We learned to thrive not by dominating our environment, but by adapting to whatever our environment threw at us. Dr. Park displayed comparative data, showing how human colonies performed compared to alien settlements when faced with unexpected challenges. Natural disasters, resource depletion, hostile environments. Human settlements consistently show higher survival rates and faster recovery times from unexpected disasters, not because we are stronger or smarter, but because we assume something will go wrong and prepare for it. The revelation was beginning to sink in across the chamber. Delegates who had entered demanding human containment or destruction were now grappling with uncomfortable questions about their own civilizations. You called this summit because you fear us, Kim said, his words echoing in the vast chamber. But what you really fear is what we represent. Proof that your civilizations have become stagnant. We are not your enemy. We are your wake-up call. He gestured to the assembled aliens. For 2,000 years, you have had no real challenges. No species that could threaten your dominance. No problems that could not be solved with existing methods. No changes that required fundamental adaptation. Dr. Park activated the final display. Innovation rates before and after human contact with various species. The pattern was unmistakable. Every species that has had significant contact with humanity has shown increased innovation rates, not because we taught them anything, but because we challenged them to think differently. The Obsidian Hierarchy's representative processed this information for several long seconds before speaking. Hypothesis: human presence functions as evolutionary pressure. Species exposed to human competition must adapt or fall behind. Exactly, Kim confirmed. We do not conquer, we catalyze. Our presence forces other species to rediscover their own capacity for growth and change. Captain Lee's voice carried the weight of military experience. The galaxy has been peaceful for so long that you have forgotten how to grow. Peace is wonderful, but it can also lead to stagnation if there are no challenges to drive improvement. Kim delivered the final blow to galactic assumptions. You see us as a threat to galactic stability. But what if the current stability is actually the problem? What if the galaxy needs to be challenged in order to reach its full potential? The chamber fell silent as delegates grappled with this revolutionary idea. For 2 millennia, stability had been the highest goal of galactic civilization. The suggestion that stability might be limiting rather than beneficial challenged their most fundamental assumptions. High Commander Vextar was the first to break the silence. You suggest that our strength has become our weakness. I suggest that strength without challenge becomes weakness, Kim replied. The galaxy has become so successful that it has stopped trying to improve. We represent the return of challenge, competition, and the need to grow. The implications were staggering. If humanity was right, then the galaxy's greatest civilizations had been slowly declining for centuries, growing complacent in their unopposed dominance. The arrival of humans was not an invasion, it was an intervention. As the full scope of the revelation sank in, the chamber erupted once again in heated debate. But this time the discussion was different. Instead of arguing about how to contain humanity, delegates were questioning whether they wanted to remain contained themselves. Kim Tae-hyun stepped forward onto the central platform, his calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the tension that filled the chamber. Dr. Park activated the holographic systems, and images of Earth began materializing in the air above them. Not the peaceful blue-green world that humanity now called home, but Earth as it had been throughout most of human history. A harsh, unforgiving planet where survival was never guaranteed. "You call our military tactics impossible," Kim said, addressing High Commander Vextar directly. "You say we fight without logic, that our strategies make no sense. But you are looking at this backwards." The hologram shifted to show ancient battlefields from human history. Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off thousands. Cannae, where Hannibal crushed a larger Roman army through pure tactical genius. The beaches of Normandy, where desperate soldiers threw themselves against impossible odds. "We do not fight without logic, Commander. We fight with the logic of the desperate. Every tactic you have observed we learned by fighting beings just as clever and determined as ourselves, other humans." Kim walked slowly around the platform as he spoke, making eye contact with delegates from different species. "For thousands of years before we reached the stars, we fought each other. Humans against humans. No technological advantage. No superior numbers, just mind against mind, will against will." The display showed the evolution of human warfare, from stone axes to nuclear weapons, from individual combat to massive coordinated campaigns involving millions of soldiers. "You mastered warfare by conquering species less advanced than yourselves," Kim continued, his voice growing stronger. "We mastered it by fighting equals. Every strategy you have encountered was first used by one group of humans against another group that was just as smart, just as motivated, and just as desperate to survive." Vextar leaned forward, his red eyes narrowing. "You speak of desperation as if it were a strength." "Because it is," Kim replied simply. "When your back is against the wall, when failure means death, when there is no retreat possible, you learn to think in ways that comfortable species never need to develop." The hologram shifted to show human soldiers in impossible situations. Vastly outnumbered, outgunned, facing certain defeat, yet somehow finding ways to turn disaster into victory through sheer refusal to give up. "You call our tactics chaotic, because they do not follow standard military doctrine. But standard doctrine assumes you have superior resources, time to plan, and the option to retreat if things go wrong. Humans learned to fight when we had none of those luxuries." Dr. Park stepped forward, her scientific equipment humming as she prepared her own presentation. "The collective questions are psychology," she said, addressing the Nethys representatives. "You wonder how individual minds can outperform collective intelligence. The answer lies in how our species evolved." New images appeared. Early human ancestors on the African savanna. Small groups struggling to survive in a world filled with larger, stronger predators. "Collective intelligence works beautifully when you need optimal solutions to known problems," Dr. Park explained. "But humans evolved in an environment where the problems changed constantly. Climate shifted, predators adapted, food sources disappeared without warning." The display showed human brain development over millennia, highlighting the growth of regions associated with creativity and rapid decision-making. Our brains developed to generate multiple solutions quickly, not to find perfect answers slowly. When a saber-toothed cat is charging at you, the second best plan implemented immediately is infinitely better than the perfect plan you think of after you are dead. She activated a real-time brain scan showing her own neural activity. "Right now, my mind is processing dozens of possible responses to your questions, evaluating multiple scenarios for how this conversation might develop, and preparing contingency plans for various outcomes. This is not chaos. This is parallel processing optimized for rapid adaptation." The collective's harmonious voices responded, "But such mental activity is inefficient. So much wasted energy on possibilities that will never occur." Dr. Park smiled. "Inefficient, yes, but effective when you cannot predict what challenges you will face. Your collective minds excel when problems have clear parameters. Human minds excel when the parameters keep changing." Kim took over again, addressing the Corvin trade concerns. "Minister Calvin, you accuse us of aggressive commercial practices. You say we negotiate as if every deal might be our last. But consider this. For most of human history, that was exactly the case. The hologram displayed human trading throughout history. Silk Road merchants risking everything on dangerous journeys, explorer traders sailing into unknown waters with no guarantee of return, immigrant families betting their entire futures on new opportunities in foreign lands. Your species developed commerce within stable societies where trade was predictable and safe. Humans learned to trade when failure meant starvation, when a bad deal could destroy your family, when you had to understand not just what people wanted but what they feared. Kim's voice grew passionate as he continued. Every successful human trader learned their skills in markets where they competed against other humans who were just as desperate, just as clever, and just as willing to take risks. We do not exploit your weaknesses. We recognize them because they are the same weaknesses that nearly destroyed us countless times. The display showed human economic history, the Great Depression, market crashes, currency collapses, and the millions of individual stories of families who lost everything and had to rebuild from nothing. You think our negotiation style is barbaric because it is based on understanding desperation, leverage, and the reality that not every deal can be fair to everyone, but that understanding comes from experience, not malice. Kim turned to address Luminar, the ethereal whose orange light pulsed with continued concern. You worry about cultural contamination, about our ideas spreading across the galaxy. But consider why our stories appeal to beings from species completely different from our own. The hologram shifted to show examples of human art, literature, and entertainment, but also similar themes from alien cultures. Stories of underdogs overcoming impossible odds, individuals standing up to oppression, small groups achieving great things through determination. Our entertainment does not create these desires. It reflects them. Every intelligent species has individuals who dream of being more than they are, who question authority, who want to achieve something meaningful. We simply tell stories that acknowledge these universal feelings. The images showed young aliens from various species consuming human media, but also creating their own art inspired by human themes while retaining their own cultural elements. Cultural influence is not contamination when it helps beings express parts of themselves they always possessed but never had words for. We are not changing your children. We are giving them tools to explore aspects of themselves that your societies may have overlooked. Finally, Kim addressed the Obsidian hierarchy's statistical concerns. The machine being's optical sensors tracked his every movement as he spoke. Your calculations predict human dominance within 500 years, but your calculations assume we want dominance. You have made a fundamental error in your analysis. The hologram displayed human expansion patterns, but now highlighted details the hierarchy had missed: joint colonies with other species, shared research projects, cultural exchange programs. We do not seek to rule the galaxy, Kim stated firmly. We seek to survive in it. Everything you have observed, our adaptability, our competitiveness, our cultural influence, these are not conquest strategies. They are survival strategies. The display showed human colonies where multiple species lived and worked together, often more successfully than single-species settlements. Humans spread our influence because we learned long ago that the best way to survive is to make ourselves useful to others. We adapt to our environment, and in a galaxy full of intelligent species, that means learning to add value to every relationship we form. Kim paused, letting his words sink in before delivering his final point. Your calculations show human ideas spreading across the galaxy, but they are spreading because they work, not because we are forcing them on anyone. Species adopt human methods because those methods help them solve problems they could not solve before. The chamber had grown quiet as the implications of Kim's words became clear. Dr. Park stepped forward for the final revelation. Every advantage you have identified exists because your species never needed to develop them. You achieved interstellar civilization through paths that made you powerful but also limited. She activated a comprehensive comparison chart showing the evolutionary paths of each major galactic species. You became apex predators in your own domains, but humans remained prey animals who happened to develop intelligence. We learned to thrive in chaos because we never had the luxury of controlling our environment. Kim concluded, you see us as a threat because we represent something your civilizations have never encountered, proof that there are other ways to achieve greatness. We are not your enemy. We are your mirror, showing you possibilities you never considered. The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates grappled with this new perspective on humanity's role in galactic civilization. High Commander Vextar rose from his seat, his massive frame casting a shadow across the chamber floor. The Valorian's stone-like skin caught the light as he moved to the central platform, each step making the floor vibrate slightly, his red eyes fixed on the human delegation with the intensity of a predator studying its prey. "I will speak first," he rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "The Valorian Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. We have faced every type of warrior the galaxy has produced. Yet these humans," he paused, his expression darkening, "they defeat us with techniques that should not work." Holographic displays materialized above the platform, showing battle scenes from various conflicts. Kim watched as human ships, smaller and less advanced than their Valorian opponents, somehow emerged victorious through tactics that seemed random and chaotic. "Observe," Vextar continued, pointing to one particular engagement. "Our fleet approaches their colony world. We outnumber them 5-1. Our ships are larger, faster, better armed. By every military principle we know, this should be a simple victory." The hologram played the battle in slow motion. Kim recognized the engagement at New Sol, where Captain Lee had commanded the defense. The human ships moved in patterns that looked almost like a dance, weaving between the larger Valorian vessels in ways that defied standard military doctrine. "Yet they scatter our formation," Vextar said, his frustration clear. "They strike where we do not expect. Retreat when we advance when logic says they should retreat. Our computers cannot predict their movements because their movements follow no logical pattern." The High Commander's massive hands clenched into fists. "We have analyzed their tactics for decades. Our greatest military minds have studied every human engagement. The conclusion is always the same: they should lose, yet they win. This defies the natural order of warfare." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the Valorian section. These were beings who had built their civilization on military might, and the idea that smaller, weaker forces could consistently defeat them clearly shook them to their core. The harmonious tones of the Nethys collective filled the chamber as they prepared to speak. All 37 of their representatives spoke in perfect unison, creating an eerie chorus that made Kim's skin crawl. "The collective has studied human prisoners," they sang together. "We have analyzed their brain patterns, their decision-making processes, their psychological profiles. What we discovered disturbs the natural order." New holograms appeared showing brain scans and psychological evaluations. Kim felt uncomfortable seeing his own species dissected and analyzed like laboratory specimens. "Human minds operate in chaos," the collective continued. "Where we think as one, they think as billions of separate, contradictory voices. Where we seek harmony and optimal solutions, they embrace conflict and good enough answers. This should make them weak, yet it makes them unpredictable." The brain scans showed human neural activity during combat situations. Even Kim was surprised by the chaotic patterns of electrical activity. During battle, their minds generate dozens of possible actions simultaneously. They do not choose the best option. They choose the first adequate option and implement it immediately. This allows them to adapt faster than any enemy can respond. One of the collective members tilted its insect-like head. "Most disturbing, they seem to thrive in situations where there is no correct answer. Where our minds freeze when faced with impossible choices, theirs accelerate. They are comfortable with uncertainty in ways we cannot comprehend." The collective's voices took on a tone of genuine fear. Individual chaos creating group success violates our understanding of intelligence itself. Trade Minister Calvin of the Corvin Federation stood next, his forearms gesturing in complex patterns as he spoke. His robes shimmered with colors that shifted based on his emotional state, currently showing deep purples and reds of concern. "The economic disruption has been catastrophic," he said, his melodic voice carrying across the chamber. "Trade routes established over millennia have been destabilized within decades of human contact. Their commercial practices are barbaric." Holographic charts showed galactic trade flows before and after human expansion. The differences were striking. Previously stable trade relationships had been replaced by a complex web of competitive agreements that seemed to change constantly. "They negotiate as if every deal might be their last," Calvin continued. "They push for advantages that seem small but compound over time. They understand leverage and desperation in ways that disturb us." The minister displayed specific examples: On Kurlan Prime, they offered emergency medical supplies to both sides of a civil war, then leveraged the resulting gratitude into exclusive mining rights. On the Spiral Frontier, they bought worthless asteroids that turned out to contain rare elements they had secretly discovered. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of helplessness. They think 3 moves ahead in negotiations that we approach 1 step at a time. Worse, they seem to understand our psychology better than we understand theirs. They know exactly which offers will tempt us and which will repel us. The energy being known as luminar pulsed with worried orange light as it floated forward. When ethereals spoke, their words came as pure thought transmitted directly into the minds of their listeners. Cultural contamination spreads faster than any plague. Luminar's thoughts echoed in every mind present. Human stories, human music, human philosophy infects young minds across the galaxy. Our children begin to think like humans. Images flashed through the chamber's displays. Young Valorians watching human movies. Corvan teenagers listening to human music. Even ethereal youth experimenting with individual consciousness instead of collective harmony. Their entertainment teaches values that contradict our social structures, Luminar continued. Individual achievement over group harmony, questioning authority rather than accepting wisdom, competition instead of cooperation. These ideas spread like a virus. The ethereal's light shifted to deep red, indicating severe distress. Most dangerous, their stories teach that anyone can overcome any obstacle through determination and ingenuity. This encourages chaos and rebellion against the natural order. Finally, the Obsidian Hierarchy's representative activated, its mechanical voice cutting through the chamber with digital precision. Central Processing Unit Designation 77 Alpha presents statistical analysis. Complex mathematical models filled the air above the platform, showing probability curves and trend analyses that hurt to look at directly. Human expansion follows no previously documented pattern, the machine being announced. They do not seek to maximize territory, resources, or population. Instead, they optimize for something our models cannot identify. The data showed human colonies scattered across the galaxy in patterns that seemed random but somehow worked more efficiently than traditional expansion models. Current trajectory analysis indicates human dominance probability at 97.3% within 500 solar rotations. This dominance will not come through conquest but through influence. Other species will willingly adopt human methods, human ideas, human ways of thinking. The hierarchy's optical sensors focused on Kim with mechanical intensity. Most concerning, they appear to achieve these results without conscious planning. They operate on instinct and adaptation rather than calculated strategy, yet their instincts are somehow superior to our calculations. The machine paused, processing. Conclusion. Humanity represents an existential threat to current galactic order. Recommendation. Immediate containment or elimination before their influence spreads beyond manageable parameters. The chamber erupted in heated discussion. Species that had been allies for centuries suddenly found themselves on different sides of the human question. Some called for military action, others for isolation, a few for immediate extermination. Chancellor Vextor slammed his armored fist on the podium repeatedly, finally restoring order. The evidence has been presented, he announced. The charges are clear. Humanity's actions, whether intentional or not, threaten the stability of galactic civilization. He turned his burning red eyes toward Kim. Ambassador Kim Tae-hyun, you have heard the accusations against your species. How do you answer these charges? Kim stood slowly, feeling the weight of every alien gaze in the chamber. Dr. Park activated her holographic equipment while Captain Lee moved protectively closer. The next few minutes would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or faced the combined might of an entire galaxy. Honored delegates, Kim began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Every fact you have presented is true. We do fight in ways you consider chaotic. We do negotiate aggressively. Our culture does spread rapidly. And yes, if current trends continue, human influence will eventually reshape galactic civilization. The chamber fell silent, shocked by his admission. But, Kim continued, you have fundamentally misunderstood what you are observing. You see chaos where there is actually a different kind of order. You see aggression where there is simply necessity. You see threat where there is opportunity. He gestured to the assembled aliens. You want to know humanity's secret? We have no secret. Everything you fear about us exists, because your species never needed to develop these traits. But perhaps it is time you learned why we did. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast hall. Ambassador Kim Tae-hyun stepped inside, his black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against the gleaming white floors of Nexus Prime's greatest building. Behind him walked Dr. Park Yoonji, her scientific equipment case clutched tightly in her hands, and Captain Lee Minho, whose hand never strayed far from his weapon. The chamber was enormous. Kim had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into shadows, and the walls curved in impossible ways that hurt to look at directly. This place was built by aliens for aliens, and it showed in every twisted angle and strange proportion. Hundreds of beings filled the tiered seating that spiraled around the central speaking platform. Kim recognized most of the species from his briefings, but seeing them in person was different. The Valorians towered over everyone else, their gray skin looking like living stone, with muscles that could crush a human without effort. The Nethys collective members sat perfectly still, their insect-like heads turning in unison whenever something caught their shared attention. The Corvan delegates wore flowing robes that shimmered with colors that had no names in any human language. They whispered among themselves constantly, their forearms gesturing in patterns that Kim knew were more than mere conversation. Near the energy barriers designed to contain them, the ethereal conclave members floated as pure light given form, pulsing with emotions that translated into visible colors. Most unsettling were the obsidian hierarchy representatives. The machine beings sat motionless as black metal statues, but their red optical sensors tracked every movement in the chamber with mechanical precision. Kim could almost hear the calculations running behind those glowing eyes. Impressive, is it not? The voice belonged to Chancellor Vextor, the Valorian who served as the current council leader. His words came out as a rumbling bass that Kim felt in his chest. Your species has never seen a gathering like this. Kim nodded respectfully. It's an honor to be here, Chancellor. Though I admit I'm curious why humanity was invited to what appears to be an emergency session. Several alien delegates turned their attention to the human party. Kim felt the weight of their stares, some curious, others hostile. He had expected this. Humanity was still the new species on the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 300 years ago. Most of these civilizations had been exploring space when humans were still learning to make fire. Dr. Park stepped closer to Kim and whispered, "The energy readings in here are off the charts. Some of these species are actively scanning us." She adjusted her glasses nervously. "I'm picking up at least 12 different types of sensors focused on our position." Captain Lee's jaw tightened. "Let them look. We have nothing to hide." The Chancellor raised one massive arm and the chamber fell silent. "We begin," he announced. "Today's gathering addresses a matter of galactic security. For the first time in 2,000 years, every major civilization has agreed to attend an emergency session." Kim felt a chill run down his spine. Emergency sessions were called only when the galaxy faced existential threats. The last one had been during the Void War, when an extra-dimensional invasion nearly destroyed all known life. "The matter before us," the Chancellor continued, "concerns the rapid expansion and influence of the species known as humanity." The words hit Kim like a physical blow. Around the chamber, hundreds of alien eyes focused on the small human delegation. Some looked curious, others calculating, but many showed open hostility. A Corvan delegate stood, his forearms spread wide. "Trade Minister Calvin speaks for the Federation," he announced in the melodic language that all species had learned for galactic commerce. "Honorable beings, the evidence is clear. In 3 centuries, these humans have disrupted trade routes that have been stable for millennia. Their commercial practices are aggressive beyond acceptable parameters." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Kim exchanged glances with Dr. Park, who looked pale but determined. A harmonious sound filled the air as the Nethys collective prepared to speak. When they communicated, all their members spoke as one, creating an eerie chorus. "The collective has observed human military actions. Their tactical approaches defy logical analysis. They achieve victory through methods that should not succeed against superior forces." The ethereal being called Luminar pulsed with orange light, indicating concern in their color language. "Human cultural influence spreads across the galaxy like wildfire. Young beings of all species now consume human entertainment and adopt human philosophical concepts. This cultural contamination threatens the diversity that has defined galactic civilization. Kim felt anger rising but forced himself to remain calm. These aliens were afraid, and fear made even the most advanced civilizations dangerous. The Obsidian Hierarchy's representative activated with a whir of mechanical sounds. Central Processing Unit Designation 77 Alpha has analyzed human expansion patterns. Statistical models indicate that current trends will result in human dominance across all vectors within 500 solar rotations. This outcome requires immediate intervention. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species called for immediate military action. Others suggested economic sanctions or isolation. Kim heard the word extermination mentioned more than once, and his blood ran cold. Chancellor Vextor slammed his armored fist on the podium, creating a sound like thunder. "Order! We will have order!" The chamber quieted. The accused will be permitted to respond to these charges. Accused. Kim stood slowly, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. Everything he said in the next few hours could determine whether humanity survived as a free species or faced destruction at the hands of a galaxy that feared them. Honored delegates, Kim began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. My name is Ambassador Kim Tae-hyun, representing the Human Coalition. I thank you for this opportunity to address your concerns. He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled aliens. Some leaned forward with interest. Others sat back with obvious skepticism. You have presented serious accusations against my species. You claim we are disruptive, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous to galactic stability. Kim took a deep breath. I will not deny these charges because they are true. Surprised murmurs filled the chamber. This was not the response anyone had expected. But, Kim continued, you have fundamentally misunderstood what you are observing. You see threat where there is opportunity. You see chaos where there is simply a different kind of order. He gestured to Dr. Park, who began setting up her holographic display equipment. With your permission, I would like to show you exactly what humanity is, why we act as we do, and why your fears, while understandable, are based on incomplete information. The Chancellor considered for a long moment. You may proceed, human, but know that your words here will determine not just your fate, but the fate of your entire species. Kim nodded grimly. The real battle was about to begin.